Alright guys, I know I'm in my judo suit and I look a little bit silly, but it's just going to help me tell the story a little bit more, get into the role a little bit more. Okay, so the story is a judo story, but there's a lesson that I'm going to give you, and it's a lesson that we can all take on board. And the lesson is how we can change our mindset in 24 hours, how things can completely change around. I'm going to tell you a story that as part of my experience when I was training in Japan. This was 2002. I'd fought in Japan, fought in the Japan Cup, which at the time was one of the hardest competitions in the world. Okay, it's almost on the same level as the Olympics. In fact, some people actually said it was harder than the Olympics because you have more Japanese fighting and stuff like that. And went to the competition. I only had one fight. I think I lost to a Korean guy who was like the world bronze medalist. So, you know, didn't get any more fights after that because I think he lost later on in the competition, and that was me done. But went to the training camp, so we were there for a training camp for a couple of weeks, which was really, really valuable. Now, we were training, first week we were training at the Kodokan, which is the home of judo, and we were at training camp amongst some of the best judo fighters on the planet. Okay, now I had a randori against a guy. Randori, for those who don't know, for the non-judo people, randori is like a judo version of sparring. Okay, so I was fighting this, the Japanese guy who actually won the event, won the Japan Cup. So he's world class, and I think at the time he was maybe like number 2 in Japan or something. And we went into randori together, me and him, and he absolutely smashed me to put it really blunt, and he threw me all over the place. There was probably not a mat on that in that whole space that I didn't land on, and he completely did a number on me, and I didn't get looking. Basically every time he gripped up, he more or less moved me around and threw me flat on my back. Now I was obviously not satisfied with that at all, but I wasn't overly upset either because I knew how, you know, how class the guy was. And I did, you know, because the situation was is that the heavyweights were on and then the lightweights were on, and we were on off all session for 3 hours. And so that meant that sometimes when we were fighting there was people watching, and then when they were fighting we were watching, and there were some of the English or British fighters who had obviously seen me get bashed up, and a few of them made comments and a few kind of remarks and a little bit of mickey taking and stuff like that, which is fine, okay, because I would have probably done the same thing. Now the next day I woke up quite early, and I was feeling better in myself. I was feeling more confident in myself generally. And my roommate at the time was reading Nigel Benn's autobiography. Now Nigel Benn is the boxer, world champion in the 90s, and the very first bit of his book tells the story of him fighting Gerald McClellan. Okay, now if you don't know anything about Nigel Benn, Gerald McClellan at the time was, I think he was number 2 pound for pound guy on the planet, but he was like a mini Mike Tyson, and that was how they were kind of bigging him up. He's a mini Mike Tyson, and he was literally destroying everyone in one round. And it was thought that when Nigel Benn fought Gerald McClellan that the same thing was going to happen, that Nigel Benn was literally just going to get destroyed probably in one round. Now when they actually fought, they come out and in the first round, as suspected, Gerald McClellan was all over Nigel Benn. Okay, and Nigel Benn was a tough fighter, good boxer, but he was getting completely dominated. He was backed up against the ropes, and then Gerald McClellan threw sort of like a left-right, and then he literally knocked Nigel Benn through the ropes, completely through the ropes, and then he managed to, you know, everyone probably at that stage thought, well, the fight's over. He managed to kind of pick himself up just before the end of the count, before the count of 10, climb through the ropes, and then come back and did a little bit better at the end of that round. And then from that moment on, round 2 onwards, just completely dominated, and the fight was stopped. I don't know what it was, maybe round 11 or something. I can't remember now, but it was stopped and had a tragic ending. Joe McClellan, unfortunately, had some complications with his brain, and I think he's blind to this day, and he's had some sort of brain damage as well. So that was a real sad story. But I was reading about this in this book that I wasn't really reading. I just picked it up and just flicking through it really, and I was reading this first bit, and it really, really hit home to me, because what Nigel Benn said about when he got knocked through the ropes, because he felt really confident going into that fight, and he'd been doing some hypnotherapy and stuff like that, and he felt really, really confident, and he got knocked through the ropes, and he said while he was climbing to his feet, when everyone else probably in the world, including Gerald McClellan, thought that the fight was over, he was climbing to his feet, and he said the thing that was going through his mind was, yeah, that was good, but now feel some of mine, meaning some of my punches. Okay, now that really hit home to me, that you could be so far down and losing by so much, but you've still got that confidence in yourself. And when he climbed through the ropes, he just literally dominated the fight and just broke him. He broke Joe McClellan, completely broke him, till he literally just had to give up. And I was reading this on the morning of, there was another training session that morning, and I went down to breakfast after reading that, and a few more people were saying, oh, are you going to fight the guy again, and kind of laughing about it, and I said, yeah, I'll beat him today, I'll beat him, because I've been inspired by this book. And they kind of laughed as if say, oh well, yeah right. And as soon as we got there and we warmed up and everything, and then we went into the randori, I picked him one of the first guys. I went looking for him, and clearly he was happy to fight me because he'd beat me up the day before. He was more than happy. And we come out, and in my head I had this thing going through my head that Nigel Bennett said, which was, yeah, that was good, but now feel some of mine. And that was literally what was going through my head. That was good, but now feel some of mine. And that mindset shift was just unbelievable. I always had the ability. I was always, that was one of my problems as a judo player. I was a little bit inconsistent because I didn't always believe in myself when I should have. And I always had the ability judo wise, but that was the lack of belief which held me back at times. And I just thought, he's not having it his own way today. I'm going to destroy the guy. And I just wanted to get in his face. I wanted to throw him, and that's what I did. I just thought, right, I'm just going to take hold of him, I'm going to throw him. And I went in, took hold of him, and I threw him. I literally threw him, and the day before I was nowhere near him, and his face was just a picture. It was like, whoa, that I weren't expecting that. And he stood up, and he come back, and he was like, to put it right, and he come back and grabbed hold of me, and I was like a kind of a force of nature almost. I was like, I sort of flicked him off, and got my grip again, and I threw him again, and he stood up, and he's really frustrated, and he started going mad to try and get me back. And everything he did, I just felt really confident. I was upright. I was just so confident, just flowing and getting off stuff, and he was bouncing off me, and I was countering him with everything, and I just threw him several times. And the guy was world class, and I was throwing him all over the place. And I come off the mat, and that was probably the best session, the best randori session I've ever had in my life, and probably to this day. And that and another session, probably the only 2 times I ever fought to my true ability, true capability, and all it was a mindset shift. So next time you think that you maybe are unsure, you don't believe in yourself, just think, right, I'm going to go out and not have any fear, not have any kind of worry about getting things wrong, what could happen to you, the things that could go wrong, and just think of what all the things that are going to go right. Focus on what you're going to do as opposed to what might happen. Okay, so that's my message. you don't, people talk about, oh, you need to this amount of time in order to get better, you need to get momentum and all that. Not necessarily. Sometimes it's just a shift that can happen, and it can be immediate. Okay, so I'm going to leave that with you today, and I will speak to you on another video. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already. See you later, guys.